Good day everyone, we are the Group 1 and our topic for today is all about learner-centered psychological principles. After the discussion, the students will be able to know the definition of learner-centered, explain the learner-centered psychological principles and its importance as a future educator. So let's start. What is learner-centered? Learner-centered is the perspective that couples a focus on individual learners, their heredity, experiences, perspectives, backgrounds, talents, interests, capacities, and needs, with a focus on learning. The best available knowledge about learning and how it occurs and about teaching practices that are most effective in promoting the highest levels of motivation, learning, and achievement for all learners. It is an approach that places the learner at the center of the learning. This means that the learner or the student is responsible for learning while the tutor or the teacher is responsible for facilitating the learning. Learner-centered education uses interactive strategies to engage the students and develop their abilities. This educational approach helps students develop skills such as decision making and problem solving, teamwork, and presentation skills that are relevant to the current labor needs. It's about shifting the focus of instruction from the instructor to the learner. On the other hand, learner-centered psychological principles means that it provides a framework for developing and incorporating the components of new designs for schooling. These principles emphasize the active and reflective nature of learning and learners. On the other hand, learner-centered psychological principles means that it provides a framework for developing and incorporating the components of new designs for schooling. These principles emphasize the active and reflective nature of learning and learners. So there are 14 learning-centered psychological principles, and it is divided into 4 factors influencing learners and learning. Okay, so first is cognitive and metacognitive. Second one is motivational and affective factors, developmental and social factors, and individual differences factors.
Cognitive and metacognitive factor. Principle 1. The nature of the learning process. The learning of a complex subject matter is most effective when it is an intentional process of constructing meaning from information and experience. There are various forms of learning processes, such as habit development of motor learning, information generation, cognitive skills, and learning strategies. In school, students learn to create meaning from knowledge, experiences, and their own thoughts and beliefs through the use of intentional processes. As a student, we cannot repudiate the fact that there are subjects that we consider as the hardest ones. Just like, for example, mathematics. I personally admit that math is a subject that I'm not really fond of. Math may be a complex subject, but we have to learn it in any other way. So, in order for us to be an effective math learner, we have to develop learning strategies that will make our learning process become easier. We have to be active, we have to be goal-oriented and self-regulated to be successful learners. Goal of the learning process. The successful learner, over time, and with support and instructional guidance, can create meaningful, coherent representation of knowledge. Students must be goal-oriented due to the strategic essence of learning. Students must create and achieve personally relevant goals in order to build useful representations of knowledge and to develop thought and learning strategies needed for continued learning success throughout their lives. And as a future educator, I will help my students set realistic learning goals that are aligned with their personal expectations and desires as well as their educational goals.
So the third principle is construction of knowledge, where the successful learner can create or link new information with existing knowledge in meaningful ways, or it is an active process that happens through individual. Like for example, when you perform an experiment, Knowing you're experimenting, obviously, you will link new information. That is how construction of knowledge works. Fourth one is strategic thinking, where the successful learner can create and use a repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve a complex learning goals, or it is a mental thinking process applied by an individual in the context of achieving a goal in any circumstances. Like, for example, you go on a trip and pack your things, thinking ahead and assuming what you need to take in case of bad weather, illness, losing document, or money. That is how strategic thinking works.
Thinking about thinking. So this is one of the principles that make huge progress that take under control of your learning. It means that you're taking charge of your own learning. You're setting a plan, monitoring your progress or mistakes, and then evaluate afterwards. In addition, learners know what to do if a problem occurs or they are not making a timely progress toward a goal, and that they can generate an alternate method so that they can reach their goal. For instance, you know that studying a certain topic gives you a hard time remembering some of the key points by just reading it once, and what will you do? You're taking down notes, and that enables you to remember some of the key points easily. And that will help you. You are taking action of your own learning. You think what will be the best, and that enables you to identify what type of learning effective technique that work on your learning style. And that make you a successful learner. So applying the thinking about thinking principles really makes a huge progress of your learning. Context on learning. So learning is influenced by environmental factors, classroom factors, including cultures, and instructional practices. What surrounds on your learning process can have a significant impact on the process of your learning. The context on one's learning becomes even more significant as this will shape the learning experience. As we all know that context on learning is influenced by such factors. It can be environmental factors, classroom factors, or instructional practices. For instance, to understand the context on learning, it is important to observe characteristics of the physical environment where people study and work because it matters. Might the environment presents challenges for performance? So observing the environment allows you to identify what effective solutions that will bring your learning as close to the real world of work as possible. This principle, the context of learning, really matters on your learning process as this will shape your learning experiences.
Motivational and effective factors. Principle 7. Motivational and emotional influences on learning. What and how much is learned is influenced by the learner's motivation. Motivation to learn, in turn, is influenced by the individual's emotional states, beliefs, interests, and goals, and habits of thinking. Principle 8. Intrinsic motivation to learn. The learner's creativity, higher order thinking, and natural curiosity all contribute to motivation to learn. Intrinsic motivation is stimulated by tasks of optimal novelty and difficulty, relevant to personal interest, and providing for personal choice and control.
So, the ninth principle is the effects of motivation to effort. So, effort is another major indicator of motivation to learn. The acquisition of complex knowledge and skills demands the investment of considerable learner energy and strategic effort, along with persistence over time. So under developmental and social is the 10th and 11th principle. So the 10th principle is developmental influences on learning. Learning is most effective when differential developmental within across physical, intellectual, emotional, and social domains is taken into account.
Social influences on learning. Learning can be enhanced when the learner has an opportunity to interact and to collaborate with others on instructional tasks. Learning is influenced by social interactions, interpersonal relations, and communication with others. It is the setting that allows for social interactions in that respect diversity, encourage flexible thinking, and social competence can enhance learning. As a future educator, I can help my students for interactive and collaborative instructional contexts to provide students an opportunity for perspective taking and reflective thinking. And that may lead to higher levels of cognitive, social, and moral development as well as self-esteem. Individual differences in learning. Individuals are born with and develop their own capabilities and talents. We have our own capabilities and talents. We have differences. And if someone is good in English and others are good in math, and that shows differences. Learners have different strategies, approaches, and capabilities for learning, and that function of prior experience and heredity. As a future educator, I can help my students examine their learning preferences and expand or modify them if necessary.
Learning and diversity. When difference in learners' linguistic, cultural, and social backgrounds are taken into account, learning becomes more successful. And learning share the same fundamental concepts of learning, inspiration, and successful teaching. Language, ethnicity, race, values, and socio-economic status, on the other hand, may all have an effect on learning. In the curriculum, paying careful attention to this variable extends the possibilities for developing and implementing appropriate learning environments. Learning motivation and achievement are increased when they believe their individual differences in skills, background, cultures, and experience are valued, appreciated, and accommodated in learning tasks and contexts. Standards and assessments. The learning process includes diagnostic process and outcome assessments as well as assessing the learner and learning progress. At every stage of the learning process, assessment provides crucial information to both the learner and the teacher. When learners are pushed to work toward sufficiently high goals, they learn more effectively. Thus, evaluating the learner's cognitive strengths and limitations, as well as current language, knowledge, and skills, is essential for choosing instructional materials of the required level of difficulty. Continuous evaluation of the learner's comprehension of the curricular content will provide both learners and teachers with useful information about their progress towards their learning objectives. Standardized measures of learners' progress and results offer one type of data about performance level within across individuals, which can be used to inform a range of programmatic decision. Inform and range programmatic decision. Other source of knowledge about learning outcomes can be used in performance evaluation, students' self-evaluation skills, as well as motivation and self-directed learning can be strengthened by self-assessment of learning success.
Why is it important to understand the principle of learner-centered learning? In summary, learner-centered education helps students develop skills that will better equip them for their professional careers. Teachers can be trained in this approach so they can apply the principles and provide their students with a better experience in learning. Common advantages of a learner-centered approach in learning: improves participation, improves retention of knowledge, boosts performance at work, develops problem-solving skills, fosters collaborative learning, makes learning more fun, facilitate personalized learning. So, what is a learner-centered approach in teaching? Learner-centered teaching is an approach that places the learner at the center of the learning. This means that the learner or student is responsible for learning, while the tutor is responsible for facilitating the learning. This is also known as student-centered learning. Similarly, what are learner-centered principles? Learner-centered psychological principles, a framework for school reform. A school that adopts and leads by these principles centers attention on learners rather than on teaching. Curriculum, instructions, or administrations of a school. In learner-centered school, education is done with instead of to students. Also, to know what are the benefits of learner-centered approach.
The importance of LCP is that it can lead to positive mental health and productivity. And with this, the educational system practice will most likely to improve when it is redesigned with the primary focus of the learners. These learner-centered principles can furthermore evolve to contribute not only to the new style of schooling. The students will give a positive mental feedback because it will give them more confidence in trying to learn their chosen careers or paths because it was introduced to them by the means of use of LCP, and it will make them more productive in their academic career. And with this educational method, the students will most likely improve and obtain a good academic background, and this school will most likely improve and contribute more to the society and contribute to the enhancement of schools and the enhancement of educational system in the world.
To sum up, everyone has understanding, resources, and interests on which to build. Learning a topic does not begin from knowing nothing. To learning is based on entirely new information. Many kinds of learning require transforming existing understanding, especially when one's understanding needs to be applied in new situations. Teachers have a critical role in assisting learners to engage with their understanding, building on learners' understanding, correcting misconceptions, and observing and engaging with learners during the process of learning. However, teachers derives from generalization about learning mechanisms and the conditions that promote understanding. It begins with the obvious. Learning is embedded in many contexts. The most effective learning occurs when learners transport what they have learned to various and diverse new situations. Therefore, learner-centered psychological principles is very useful for us as learners and future educators, since learner-centered psychological principles provide us knowledge and develop our individual skills. So that's all. Thank you.